Hey everyone. So, before I start with a review of the movie, I wanted to give two warnings. Number one is for spoilers, and number two is that this movie was really violent, really vulgar, and really dark. And so, I'm going to be talking about stuff from that sort of stuff from the movie. And if that makes you uncomfortable, you might not want to watch this video. I won't blame you. But before I get into the movie proper, I want to talk about some of the trailers, because this was sort of the opposite experience of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, wherein the movie was really dull and boring, but the trailers looked kind of interesting. This was one of the trailers. For this one, the movie was, spoilers, at least for me, kind of awesome, and the trailers were really stupid. Like, I'll go through some of them. First is going to be a movie about a bunch of strippers that try and screw like the Wall Street gang from the recession out of their money. The next is going to be about the Fox News sex scandal with Charlize Theron playing Megyn Kelly. So everyone's going to be really excited to see that. The next is going to be some dumb romantic comedy about a girl dying of cancer who, tries to spread Christmas cheer. Next is going to be our annual high concept science fiction with a big name star, a la Gravity, Interstellar, and The Martian. This is going to be about Brad Pitt trying to find his dad, Tommy Lee Jones, who blew up a space elevator. And then lastly is probably one of the lamest trailers I've ever seen, and it's going to be for Dr. Sleep, the Stephen King book. And it cuts from scenes of the movie that's coming out to scenes from The Shining, and it makes it look so bad because, it's comparing some terrible modern remake or modern adaptation that's going to be awful to one of the greatest horror movies ever made. And I think, as Argent said, though, I don't like Stephen King a lot, and I think I'm going to agree with Argent that he says he's a hack, and he hated the Stanley Kubrick The Shining, so there you go. But yeah, anyways, on to the movie itself. So this movie sort of rides the line, and I think steps into the good side of trying to be wannabe edgy. Like, it's got the poster of like the badass bride with sort of the cutoff gown and the sneakers and the giant shotgun and the bandolier. But like, when you watch the movie, it's like it felt earned. It's not like, oh, we want it to look badass for badass's sake, even though it obviously looks good on the poster. And I think I want to coin the term Richsploitation movie, wherein this sort of felt like it could totally belong in, say, the 70s or 80s, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but with really rich people. And I don't know if there's a lot of movies like that about, fucked up rich families that try and murder each other. But there should be. And this movie was outstanding in its genre, even though it might be the only movie in its genre. So, to start off, the movie starts with the groom and his brother hiding out during this sort of killing game. Yes, it's like Danganronpa, I guess, where there's a wedding going on with his aunt, and her husband gets killed. And we're like, why is this happening? And then it cuts to leading up to the wedding, where we're introduced to all the characters. Grace, who's going to be the bride, who's very pretty in this movie. Well, up until a point, played by Samara Weaver. Anyways, like, him and his brother start talking to her before the wedding, and it's like, it gives some good irony, some good dramatic irony, where they're like, hey, it's not too late to back out, it's not too late to leave. And she's like, she thinks it's just, oh, I'm nervous about marrying into this super rich family, because their family like runs a board game, as they say it, domain or Dominion, this like huge board game enterprise that goes back to like the mid 1800s. And they get married, and some of the character acting is so hilarious. Like, there's this crusty old aunt who's just like staring daggers at her, and she's like sitting alone in a chair, and I burst out laughing. And then like she's having the conversations with her mother-in-law and all of that, and it's like, it gets a lot of good setup of showing these people as, weird sort of snobby rich people, just so they can turn into complete psychopaths later. And so I thought like that sort of first build up is really good. And then their wedding night. They're in the mansion, and you know, they're about to engage in, they're consummate the marriage. But then like the crazy aunt just shows up, who I love the way she looks. She's just like this short blonde woman who's like got like Bride of Frankenstein hair sticking up, and she's like, no, the family wants you. And then it's revealed, anytime somebody marries into the family, they have to play a game. And it goes back to like the great great grandfather of the groom, who wanted to start an enterprise, he was like a merchant marine man, during and around the Civil War. And he met this man named LeBale, some French guy, who had like this mystical puzzle box. And he said, like, if you can solve the puzzle box, I'll finance any enterprise you want. And he did. The great grandfather did. Um, and what had ended up happening is he financed his like gaming empire, which started out, with like card games, dice games, and then eventually like board games and whatnot. And they eventually grew to be this super prominent rich family. And so the sort of catch is that anytime somebody marries into the family, you have to play a game in which the person marrying in, say either the bride or the groom, has to insert this blank card into the box, and then they have to play whatever game is written on the card when it comes out. And for all of the games, it can be like chess or checkers or whatever. They play it, nothing happens, family goes on. But if they pick hide or seek, then what happens is they have to perform a dark ritual until dawn, in which whoever is marrying into the family is hunted down and is sacrificed to Satan. They literally start saying "Hail Satan" at the end, which, again, in a movie that you're not supposed to take completely seriously, it's perfectly fine, and it was kind of hilarious. But yeah, so that's sort of how it works. And I really like how they did the exposition, where it's like the movie is always moving. There's a really nice flow to it, where even when they're giving exposition, it's like the dad, who's sort of the main antagonist, is passing the box around and like, up into Grace. And then while he's explaining all of this, and just like the delivery is really good. Henry Czerny, I think is his name, is the actor. And yeah, speaking of actors, I love how the groom looks a lot like the Report of the Week guy. But that's just an aside. That's neither here nor there. Anyways, she of course picks out hide and seek, and that's the game that was played 30 years earlier, when the groom and his brother were hiding out, and his aunt had saw her husband die. And so she though thinks it's just going to be a game of hide and seek. So she's like, all right, go out and hide. We'll count to 100, then we'll come find you. And so they all get weapons, and of course the groom, like, they sort of lock the groom up in the room where they were all gathered, because it's like he might try and get her out, which is exactly what happens. And so the movie sort of flows on of her trying to escape, and a lot of dark comedy. Like, they're all handed weapons, and like one of the brothers-in-law is it's like he's handed to this ancient crossbow, because they all have to use these like old-fashioned weapons. And he's like, I don't know how to use a crossbow. And so like you eventually see him like in the bathroom, and he's like watching a YouTube video of how to use a crossbow. And then like and he's like texting. He's sort of like comic relief. He's like the bumbling fat guy. He's like, yeah, I don't know what we're doing here. He's more sort of maybe the audience surrogate. But like, what's really good in the movie is how, even though it is definitely a very dark comedy, the characters are very sort of three-dimensional, or they're very nuanced, and like half of them are sort of crazy and half of them are like, this is awful, we shouldn't be doing this. But like and then like it shows like some of the ones that you thought were completely sane aren't, and the one, and like everybody sort of has like half of this human side that's like, this game is awful, fucked up, we shouldn't be doing this. Like the mother-in-law is like, I love my son, and I really like you, but it's like, gotta do this, because they think that with the curse is that if they don't perform the sacrifice and kill the bride by sunrise, they're all gonna die. Like, it's sort of it's essentially, it's like the rules is that was the curse, or that was the stipulation LaBelle sent. And there's like supernatural elements where he sort of appears as a ghost occasionally. I wish he did it more. It would have been more interesting if they showed it at least once before the end that, yeah, he's a real ghost. And spoilers, the curse is real. um, so the bulk of the movie is like her and her husband trying to escape, or her trying to escape, and like she does a lot of like horrific things to survive. Like she eventually makes it all the way out of the mansion into the gardens, and they have a goat pen, which is, all right, that's weird. But of course, since satanic rituals end up later, it's like, okay, it makes sense they have a goat pen. And that they're a rich, eccentric family. No one's going to question it. And so what, like, the one of the most fucked up parts of the movie is like they brought some of the family brought their kids along, like their young kids. And like she's in the goat barn, like trying to escape and hide. And one of the boys shows up, and she's like, hey, it's okay, things are gonna be okay. And he just shoots her in the hand and like blows a hole through her hand. And so then she just punches him in the face, and it's kind of hilarious. um but anyways, she falls down into this pit where they throw all the dead bodies, because a bunch of the maids got killed, mostly because one of the wives, the wife of the fat guy, is like a complete cokehead and insane. Like she like snorts coke, and she's like doing pills, and she's like, you know, and she like accidentally kills two of the maids. And so it's like, well, we gotta get rid of the bodies. And like they this is where they throw the bodies of the dead people into this like thing that just turns into this like big latrine thing. So, really gross, but like gross in an awesome way. And eventually, like, she crawls up this ladder, and the hand that she got shot through, she like slams on a nail to add even more injury to injury. She eventually makes it out to through the front gates, and like screams at a car to help her, and the guy just drives off. She's like, these fucking rich people. Sorry, I told you this was gonna be dark. You had your way out at the beginning of the video. But anyways, then she gets captured by the butler, who she has like this whole brawl with. And it's one of the best parts of the movie is like one of the, I guess, motifs is like he keeps singing the 1812 overture, and eventually he captures her, because I think it's the way it works is that they can kill her, but it's even better if they can like just kill her outright, like shoot her in the head or something. But if they can get her alive and perform this ritual, then it's even better, I guess. Like, it's not explained, but it's okay. I can accept it. So he like knocks her out with a tranquilizer gun, and it starts driving her back, and like and like he's like blaring the 1812 overture, where whilst the rest of the family is like looking on, like through the like they have like a webcam through the phone or something. And then it's like the dad's like, you gotta turn off the damn music, she's gonna kill you. Like she wakes up and like crashes the car and escapes. But eventually, like, the brother, who's sort of really like the alcoholic brother, is like really conflicted about, he's like one of the most conflicted, ends up being like the most heroic and good character, where he brings her back, and they are going to perform the ritual and I think they have to drink blood, and they start chanting in Latin, but he actually ended up just poisoning. He didn't poison to kill, just to like, make them vomit up and like, get disoriented, tries to break her out. He gets killed by his own wife, because again, a lot of the characters are like, there's sort of this dissonance between like, they're all in with this family, they accept it, and like his wife said, like, it's because she would prefer to be dead as opposed to, I guess, where she came from, which they don't have to explain it, like, you get it. She kills him, she shoots him and kills him, but she escapes, and they had handcuffed and tied up the husband. He escaped too. But then what ended up happening is, the big twist is, I guess he ends up choosing to be in on it. And I think so. And like, he's like, she's in here, and they all capture her, and they're about to do the ritual. And I think as a last act of like him trying to help her, he like slams the knife down, but like into her hand so she can have it, and she like gets up. And then dawn breaks, and it's like nothing. They think, of course, for a few moments that nothing happens. But then like the crazy aunt, who like they gave her like this giant like ridiculous looking axe. Like at one point when like one of the maids gets shot with a tranquilizer dart in like the mouth, like she won't stop gurgling and like interrupting the ant, so she just cuts off her head. And then it's like she's like, we still have to kill the girl. Like she's like, the girl still dies, and she then just explodes because that's the curse ends up being completely real, and all the members of the family just explode into blood one by one. They get away with not having to show the kids dying by like having their mom and them all run in, because like there's one of the points that shows how fucked up this is like they the mother of the young kids, who's like, she's like the drug addict, she's like, you know, she finds the kid knocked out in the barn, and she's like, what happened here? And he's like, oh, you know, I saw the lady and I wanted to join in on the fun and, you know, shoot her, and I shot her. And she's like, I'm so proud of you. But anyways, like they all run off frame, and then you just see the blood exploding throughout the doorway. And then she's like done with her husband, who seemed to be in on it and went insane. I guess that's a criticism I could have, is that like he didn't really go through an arc. He basically just sort of went through, I'm completely against this. I'm completely with my wife. I want to help get her to survive. And then he just goes insane for no real reason. He's in on it. But yeah, he explodes in front of her, and she's of course laughing because her mind has been broken because of everything that's happened. And it ends really cheesily, wherein, of course, the house in all the scuffle is set on fire, so the house is burning down, which always happens in these movies. And then, like, the cops finally show up, because in a really funny scene, she's in, like, the butler's car, which has sort of a direct connection to to like a call center or a service center. And she calls him and is like, please get the police, I'm trying to be killed. So the guy does, but then he's like, I am reporting this car is stolen, and I'm shutting the car down. So she gets stranded in the car. But anyways, the police show up, and they're like, oh god, what happened? And she's like, in-laws. It's like, oh, that's sort of a dumbbell line, but most of the movie is pretty good. I think the first half was a lot stronger and like building up everything, and like it was a lot funnier. Second half was a little dull and boring. But yeah, before I give my final thoughts on it, I love this like little touch wherein, like in the prologue, or in the introduction of the movie, when it shows like Alex is the name of the Alex and Daniel are the brothers. Alex is the guy who marries Grace. It's like they all have to like wear these ugly masks, and it's like, oh, this is part of the ancient ritual, like they've done this for generations. And it's like, why aren't we doing it now? It's like the dad's like, oh no, that was just some stupid thing we made up in the 80s. But yeah, like I know what I said is really dark and bleak, but like a lot of the movie was really fun, and I sort of like a lot of the dark stuff, and I thought it was really well done. Like you really feel for her. Like it was an interesting combination of like her trying to survive after like being shot, and like everybody's trying to kill her, but it's also like she's just like, fuck, like, Jesus Christ. Sorry for using that, but I don't know. I really like the movie. I thought if you can stomach it, if you want like a really dark comedy that's creative, I would recommend it. But anyways, that's the movie review. You can all unsubscribe from my channel now, because you're all gonna probably hate me for praising such a dark, vulgar movie. But yeah, I thought it was really funny. Anyways, I'll talk to you later. God bless.